pencils, pens. What were invented first? There's no way to find out. Or is there? On I Don't Know About That with Jim Jefferies. Welcome to I Don't Know About That with me, Jim Jefferies. I'm here with Kelly, Forrest, and Jack. How'd you like that one? Pencils, pens?
What do you think was first?
I reckon the pencil was invented before the pen. The lead pencil would have been before they put ink into... Although they used feathers and ink. Well, that is a good one.
Oh, crap.
Yikes. Were you ever in the Pen 15 Club?
No.
Oh.
I don't know what that is, the Pen 15
It was
Club?
like in school, people would be like, do you want to join the Pen 15 Club? And they'd draw a Pen 15 on your hand, but it looks like penis. And so you'd have penis on your hand all day.
I played 52 pickup. It was one of the ones that I always got beaten by.
Oh, yeah. That was the first time I ever got grounded was Grant wanted to play a 52 card pickup with me, and I didn't know what it was. He threw my cards everywhere, and he walked upstairs, and I flipped him off. And I got grounded.
You got grounded.
I got
for that?
grounded.
How old were you?
Probably 5, maybe.
Grounded.
He was being a real
grounded.
dickbag. He deserved.
But being grounded at 5, where were you going?
I mean, it was just more like I got a stern talking to.
Damn.
Yeah.
And now look at me. I do it all the time.
Oh, I can't ground that.
I want to give a shout out to a couple of comedians today. I just watched the King of Staten Island, Bill Burr, Pete Davidson, guys who I'm friendly with, who I admire and like. Both of those guys, excellent actors.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them nailed it.
The movie was good?
The movie's fantastic.
I haven't seen it.
They're very good actors. Bill, you know, I've seen Bill in a lot of things, but Pete had a lot of emotional pull in the film, and the acting was spot on. I've watched it twice now, so I just want to do that. I also want to give a shout out to Ellen DeGeneres, who's having a horrible time. Now, I don't know. I'll tell you this. Ever since I've moved to Hollywood, I've heard horror stories about Ellen DeGeneres, right? But I'll tell you this much. I wouldn't believe any of them. They're probably true, but I'm not going to believe anyone. Because why is it always the famous person who has all the stories about them? No one ever talks about the janitor at the Ellen DeGeneres show who was a pain in the ass.
Oh, no. Oh, well, yeah, because they're not being a pain in the ass.
Because Ellen was running the things. When you're the boss of a big show like that, and I was a boss of a little show like that, for the most part, you get along with everybody, but there's always some people that aren't pulling their weight, or they're pains in the ass, or they hardly work. And I think to get to where she is, you have to have a little bit of get that person the fuck out of here. And those people feel really badly treated, and then they write stories. So although I have heard bad things about Ellen, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. Let's wait until all the information's in, because the network's doing an actual investigation right now.
I've seen thousands of stories of it, though.
I know, but I'm
hell.
going to give her the benefit of the doubt until I find out.
So you really believe women, is what you're saying?
I believe Ellen DeGeneres.
Breaking news, Ellen DeGeneres' video has been found of her drowning puppies. They have that, actually.
So what did those puppies do?
That's a good point.
True. Yeah.
Did they get into the sack? Was she throwing other sacks full of other garbage?
How did you know they were in a sack?
For work.
I didn't even say they were in a sack. How did you know they were in a sack?
He's seen the video.
Jesus.
It's a good video.
I just think everyone's piled on, and then we don't have all the information. Was she mean to people at work, or was she?
She supposedly has been awful to people she works with, like just terrible.
I've heard this. Everybody I've ever met says this.
And there's plenty of tweets that have gone viral on this, basically, but there is one where it's like, why is it that everybody who moves to LA eventually knows somebody who's been mistreated by Ellen? Like,
yeah, I think I agree. I think we should always wait for the investigation to come out and see what happened. I have heard many stories of that as well, but it could just be the thing where you have to come up with it.
It's not illegal to be a bitch.
No,
did she do anything unscrupulous?
But they're not saying she should be arrested. They're just saying. I think the big thing is like, when you're a celebrity whose entire gimmick is that you're really kind and generous and all that stuff, but behind the scenes you're treating people that you work with like shit, I think that's the disconnect. Nobody's saying she needs to be arrested, but it's just like, then fuck off. Like,
right, but is there going to be, because there's a lot of people who worked on that show for a long time, so...
It says bullying and racism. So there might be.
Oh, now we've got something.
The story's
What did she say then?
It doesn't. This is a news article saying that former staff members claim to be victims of bullying and racism, and that's part of the investigation. So it doesn't have specifics yet. But so if that comes out that she was racist, that's a whole different thing than being like an asshole. Like
I hear also homophobic.
very, very weird.
There's a little curveball.
I mean, but that happens though. I mean, people that are gay themselves end up being homophobic because they hate themselves.
Closeted people.
A lot of people are saying that this is a backlash for her being in the wasn't she with Bush in the
it was backlash for the Bush
sporting event? I forget. Yeah, in a booth. Yeah.
Also, I thought it was a little bit rich in her special that she was going, she couldn't get TV work because the industry was homophobic or whatever. You're like the richest person on TV.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean you didn't get? You had a sitcom, you were out of work for a few years, then you got another TV show.
Yeah, that's just how the industry works.
That's just how the business works.
I've been unemployed since December.
She's worth. It says she's worth
because
330
people don't
million.
like blondes.
Yeah, that's true.
Still married to Porsche de Rossi.
Yeah.
They're doing it.
Yeah.
And
Porsche sits around not eating food, and then they giggle together, and I don't know.
why does she struggled with her weight? Like Porsche de Rossi.
Porsche Rossi was anorexic or something. I'm being mean about anorexia.
But she's 16 years younger than Ellen. All right, Ellen.
All right, Ellen.
She's not ageist.
That's why you should learn how to dance, kids.
Wait, Porsche de Rossi's from Australia?
She is.
What?
She is from Australia.
I didn't know that. I didn't even I've never heard her with an accent. Why are you shaking? You don't even know who she is?
No, of course I know who she is. I didn't know she was from Australia.
Horsham, Australia. What the hell is Horsham?
Country town.
She's from Horsham, and they named her Portia.
Yeah,
it's kind of rude.
Porsche from Porsche.
Porsche
she
from
would have been
Horsham.
the only Porsche in Horsham, including the cars. There would have not been another one.
Oh, and then 1 hour ago, Film Daily, a $500 million divorce. Are Ellen DeGeneres and her wife splitting? Wow, there's all sorts of
They've
rumors.
been saying that for years.
Yeah. Rumors swirling.
I also think Ellen, what she did wrong at the beginning of COVID was she went, it's like being in prison. She was in her house going, it's like being in prison. You made a misstep there, Ellen.
Yeah.
That's a nice prison, though.
I feel like there were a lot of celebrities that are like, we get it. We're stuck at home, too. We're like, you have a fucking giant pool. You have butlers. What you do not understand what we're going through.
When they did that sing along with Disney, people should have just done that in the smallest room in their house.
Right.
They were swinging around on fucking those ladders that are in your libraries. Right? As soon as if you have a library in the modern era of digital books and everything, right? It's ridiculous.
You're an
but
asshole.
if you have a ladder that runs along that library room that you and your wife can sing "Be Our Guest." And then you can slide around. You're not in touch with the common folk.
No, definitely not.
Do you know what her husband's name she was married to? Ellen DeGeneres?
Ellen was married to a man?
What?
Yeah, before she came out, I guess.
Oh, I don't know about that.
No. She used to be married to a guy called Belland. And that's why they broke up, because her name was Ellen Belland.
No, his name is Mel Metcalf.
Mel and L?
No, wait, Mel Metcalf, yeah. MELME-TEL. Yeah, it was Ellen and Mel. And I don't know there's not a lot of information on him. He has an IMDb here. Let's see what he does.
There's celebrity names.
Yeah, he'd be some type of
producer and actor known for
the Ellen
Holiday
DeGeneres.
on the Moon, Requiem, and The Art of the Doll Maker.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. He was married to Portia de Rossi.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Okay.
Sorry. Do you know how many Ellen fanatics are sitting around their house right now going, no!
Got it wrong.
Ellen used to date that other bird that had the short blonde hair. Anne
Heche.
Anne Heche.
That's
Anne
right.
Heche used to do it. Yeah, she used to do it.
But she's not gay?
She's back with men now. She's come back.
Probably bi.
She's bisexual.
Yeah.
Anne Heche.
Anne Heche. So because she was in that was right at the time she was in that movie where she crashes in the airplane
with Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford, and they have to get along on an island.
Yeah. How would you get along with? I always thought that about Harrison Ford when he crashed his plane on a golf course.
Yeah.
That's some Indiana Jones shit.
Oh, yeah.
That would make you blow your mind on the Matrix so badly that if you go, fucking hell, there's an old World War II plane that has crashed in the middle of this field. Let's look inside it. It's Indiana Jones. Yeah, and then you'd be just checking for the time machine. I would argue, before we start this subject, I would argue that the time machine will never be invented because they would have already come back and told us about it.
Yeah, that's how those movies work.
Yeah.
When you watch them, yeah. But once it gets invented, yeah.
But the future hasn't happened. We're the only present.
I don't know. This is why I can't get my head around. Well,
I need to smoke weed before we do this conversation.
I don't know what this dude.
Do you believe in time travel, Jack?
Yeah, why not?
Because it's ridiculous.
Another Jack hot take.
Yeah,
Why not?
Why not?
By the
You
way,
didn't ask for a hot take.
just to clear up, Anne Heche and Ellen DeGeneres were never married.
No, but they dated for a while.
Yeah, I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, they
trying to get our hot goss.
They had that, and then like Anne Heche, has she said anything about Ellen? Oh, Ellen never spat in my face and threw me out of a room.
No,
Never. Like, what was the one I heard about Ellen where it was like she bitched about some food or something? There was something that wasn't made right, and she had a tantrum. I don't know.
I'm sure there's plenty of those.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard things like people aren't allowed to make eye contact with her, which I've never really understood.
Yeah, but Steve Harvey had the same thing. I'll tell you what, when you got a late night show, I know what happened to Steve Harvey. He put up a Lotus. No one's allowed to come in the office. There was too many people. He was nice at the beginning. There was too many people came in and went, "Hey, I've got an idea to pitch to you." And he said, "Can they just fuck off?"
Yeah.
Because other than that, Steve Harvey just wrote, "Can people not talk to me?" Like that's a pretty generous thing.
Yeah.
I won't talk to you. You don't talk to me. Let's leave each
Right.
other alone. He wasn't abusing people. He wasn't yelling at people. He was saving all of his smiles for Family Feud. I've never said to any of you can't talk to me. Not for an extended amount of time.
I remember someone, like when I first started working for you, they go, "Oh, don't ever talk to Jim before a show." And then someone was really serious with me. I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then just someone just blew it out of proportion. So that happens with like every celebrity.
No, I never asked, not once that no one talks to me before a show. There's how these fucking rumors start.
Yeah, exactly.
There's how these fucking rumors. And did you leave me alone? How long did that take? Because most of the time we used to listen to Barry Manilow music on one speaker thing, and I used to play a pinball machine for a bit.
Yeah.
And then I used to wear my suit and go, "I don't know about this suit. Can I have a vest or whatever?" I was pretty chill before you went out.
I would guess most people
more
probably
stand up shows than our tape show.
Oh, before stand-up?
Yeah.
No, you can talk to me right before I go out there.
I would guess people are probably just intimidated at some point. Like I wouldn't have started a conversation with you in the first year of knowing you. I just didn't want to bother you.
Don't look at me.
I never have made eye contact with you, which is weird 3 years in.
Yeah. I'm not good at making eye contact with people. I assume that I'd like them all to do the same to me.
I hate eye contact. It makes me so uncomfortable.
Oh, it's
that's if I was in a
stupid.
position of power on a show, I would demand eye contact. That's what I say. Everybody must make eye contact with me at all times. So you just walk through like that's what I'd do.
I don't understand. How could Ellen be that bad, though?
We'll see. Investigation
Let's
happening.
have her on.
We'll be checking in with this in a couple of weeks. Ellen watch.
By the way, it looks like the pen was before the pencil.
Wow.
Shit.
Wow.
The
That is
Why did they even bother? I guess because you can erase it. I guess.
I don't know, because graphite was discovered eventually, and then
But it was
that's
lead first.
Yeah, and you can sketch better with it than you can a pen.
Look, I didn't
Yeah.
do a lot of research here, Jack, but I'm going with pen before pencil.
No, I just meant graphite is newer in pencils.
Has anyone ever owned a pencil that wasn't a 2B?
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't.
Okay.
Two Bs all
That's
the
the
way.
end of that conversation.
Well, what was yours, Forrest? Huh? If you had a different type of pencil, what
I had
what
a
kind was
1
it?
sometimes. I had a 3. I had a husky if I was going to pencil fight.
Are they-
Do you remember pencil fighting?
What
Did
the hell's
anyone do that?
pencil
No.
fighting?
Where you go like that and you flick
Yeah,
it?
so pencil fighting is when you used pencils. One person would you'd have your pencils, you'd hold on to one like on both ends, and you had to hold on to it tight or loose. Was that there was like a little bit of gamesmanship there, and the other person would take the pencil and flick it and try and break your pencil. And you would hit it with the metal part of the end of the pencil to break the pencil. And eventually you'd have a pencil that was like undefeated and like won like 9 matches. You'd be like, this is my pencil, and never gets beaten. Sometimes if you tried too hard to pull back the pencil, you'd snap your own pencil hitting it. But it was a whole thing.
I didn't grow up rich.
Bring it
I
back.
couldn't waste
There was
pencils
a kid
like
at
that.
school who smashed my ruler once. That was a bad one.
That's a funny story.
This is a good time. And I think to remind everybody to follow our Instagram, IDCat.
IDKAT podcast. IDCat.
How you enjoying the podcast, folks? Well, let's start the actual show. Forrest, take it away.
Okay, it's time to introduce our guest for today. Please welcome to the program, Dr. Faith Hackett.
I already know too much now. It's a doctor and it's a Hackett.
It's a Hackett.
I thought for sure we were going to keep the Hackett out of it.
Also, not it's. She's right there. She's a
Well,
person.
no, a doctor. She's a doctor. She's a Hackett, right? But I don't like to use different pronouns with people anymore. I try not to guess these things anymore. But no, you know how it is. That's the world. Anyway,
So just so you know, Dr. Faith Hackett, this is the part of the show where Jim is going to try and guess what you do just by looking around, seeing what's in your home there, or asking some yes or no questions. I might give him some hints.
So because you're a doctor and you're from, I am going to assume Jack's family.
Why would you assume that?
because of the name Hackett, and there's other reasons. And because you're from Jack's family, I'm going to assume that you're a doctor in some type of sweet, sticky syrup that goes into carbonated water. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Yeah, she's a doctor of Coca-Cola. She's Dr. Coke.
I think she's being sarcastic.
I used to have a guy called Dr. Coke who came over to my house once a week.
Wait, you're not being sarcastic?
No, sometimes I'm covered in icky syrup.
I feel like I should stop asking questions at this spot, and maybe we should just find out what she's a doctor in.
That's it? You're not guessing anymore?
I'm not going to ask
you want any
more.
guesses?
There's too much. There's too many
any
innuendos. Give me a clue.
Okay.
Okay. This icky syrup is a lollipop.
Okay, she's giving you a clue.
Part of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
You're a doc of food preservatives? You're a Willy Wonka?
Now, children. How about children? There's a clue.
She's a pediatrician.
She's a pediatrician.
All
That's
right.
it. You got that right. And
Yay.
today we're going to be talking about vaccines specifically.
Ah,
Dr. Faith Hackett.
I love the vaccines.
Okay. Dr. Faith Hackett is board certified by the American Academy of Pediatrics since 1986. She completed her residency at Johns Hopkins Medical Institution in pediatrics. She is on staff at Anne Arundel Medical Center in Annapolis, Maryland, and she has been a practicing pediatrician in Severna Park, Maryland for 34 years. So.
Now, my first question before we get into the vaccines, I don't remember pediatricians in Australia. We all went to the same doctor. This idea that your child goes to a different doctor to you wasn't something that I remember Ross off Friends. He kept on going to his pediatrician. I never understood that storyline. Is this an American thing, or was I just going to the wrong doctors as a child?
It's Australian. You only had 2 doctors.
Yeah.
No, you only had your doctor. You had your family doctor. You didn't have a special kid one.
But, that's true here in areas that are like very spread out. Like in rural America, you won't find a pediatrician.
Oh.
But in very heavily occupied areas like big cities, et cetera, there's so many kids and there's so many adults that it's easy to not be a family doctor. You can be, very specifically dedicated to certain age groups. They even have geriatrics where you only take care of people over 65.
I should also mention that our doctor was also our vet. So that's important to add into the whole thing.
My pediatrician was Dr. Nash. I remember, and I hated getting shots. I guess all kids do. And then one day I ran out because he told me I was going to get a shot. I ran out of the doctor's office into the parking lot and climbed a tree because I wasn't going to.
Yeah, that's Forrest all over.
So agile.
Back there, it was the last tree he ever climbed.
Okay, so
the shot made him all bloat.
Oh, okay. So Dr. Hackett, what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna ask Jim to tell us everything he thinks he knows about vaccines. I'm also gonna prod him along with some questions to help him go along. We'll let him ramble on there for about 5 to 10 minutes, and after that, we're going to grade him how well he did. You're going to give him a grade 1 through 10, 10 being the best on his accuracy. Kelly's going to give him a grade on his confidence, and I always do, etc. If he scores combined 21 through 30, large pox. 11 through 20, medium pox. 0 through 10, smallpox.
Smallpox.
Yeah, I think you got it. It's a trend.
I like that.
Yeah. You wait for that wave of large pox. That'll really wipe out a generation.
I'll be taking some notes, Dr. Hackett, so that I can kind of lead us back to where we were, but feel free to if you'd like to too. So, all right, Jim, what is a vaccine?
A vaccine is something that is given to you to stop you from getting a disease or I'd say a disease, yeah.
Something that's given to you?
It's an injection that's filled with, and sometimes it's filled with a small portion of the actual disease, so your body will build up immunity so that you will no longer be able to contract. You can still get the diseases, but it makes it very, very rare.
Okay. And it's only an injection, or can you do other things?
I believe it's only in needle form, yeah.
Okay. All right. Where does the word vaccine come from?
From the Latin to vaccinate.
Wow.
No, it comes from, I was only being silly there. It was very clearly from the Vatican. And it was to make young boys tell lies. That's the first one. I'm not swearing.
Thank you.
That's one of the rules. Dr. Hackett laid down.
There's boundaries
yeah.
here.
How is a vaccination different from inoculation, or is it the same?
Inoculation versus vaccination. I think inoculation is something that you do after you get something. You can be inoculated for something after you've had the condition already, so you won't get it again. Vaccines preventive. Is that the word? Preventative? Is a predator?
It's a word now, yeah. When was the first inoculation?
Okay, so look, on vaccines and whatnot, I know that the late 1960s was when they. Oh no, the late 1950s was when they invented the polio one. So there was ones before that. Polio wasn't number one. I think we already did things for tuberculosis, and we did other ones. So I'm going to say they started vaccinating in the early 1940s.
Early 1940s.
Yeah.
First vaccination.
Yeah.
And inoculation, you said, was different. So
1938.
Okay. You're killing it. Do you know what nasal insufflation is?
That would be a way to inoculate someone through the nasal passage with a spray.
Sounds good.
Yeah, because that's why cocaine works, because there's a lot of little blood vessels and stuff up there, and it can get into your system very quickly. And you have like the sprays now for when you got a cold, because that's where the germs get into. So it's another way to vaccinate.
There you go. Yeah, only if they came up with a vaccination combined with cocaine, you'd be ready.
That's how I get my fentanyl.
He'd be unstoppable.
When was the vaccine invented, and who discovered it? Oh, you already said 1940s, but yeah. Who was the first person to come up with a vaccine or to coin the term vaccine? Let's say.
I'm going to say who's the one who found who found penicillin? Marie Antoinette? No, she was the queen, wasn't she?
Are you sure you don't want to go with Joe Finkel on this one?
Who's the woman with the radiation?
Is it Marie Curie?
Marie Curie.
All
she
right.
did it. Marie Curie.
Marie Curie?
Yeah.
Okay. How was the vaccine produced?
In big metal machines that like if you ever see those like how they make sriracha, it's similar to that. there's little needles that are all going along a conveyor belt, and then a little thing goes down and goes.
And then there's a little rooster label that
and then it goes into a thing, and then some people
can you do
go.
the sound again, please?
And then the little needle goes thing, and they get into plastic bags, and then the little heater seals the bag, and then there's like a lady who's been working there for 10 years going, yeah, a lot of people don't like this type of work, but I like this type of work. It gives me time to think about other things.
It's like an Office documentary
into boxes. That's how they manufacture.
Dr. Hackett, were you trying to say something? You couldn't hold it in any longer?
I was talking about making Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
There you go.
Yeah, and that's why they call it comfort food. It's a small vaccine.
How do they test vaccines?
I've talked about this as my specialty. You start off with monkeys. You inject them and see. You start off with rats, then you go monkeys, then you go homeless people, students, then us. Now, what they really have to do is they have to find, first of all, someone who's got the condition. So right now with Corona, there's no use. I guess they do test it on they're testing it on people who want to get paid $50 and to go in, probably more money. They're probably getting more money.
For COVID? Like COVID-19?
For COVID, they're probably getting $5,000, $10,000. And they come in and they inject them, and then they have one person they inject with just nothing, and one person they inject with the vaccine, and then they can have the test person versus the other and see if anything happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you know how a vaccine works?
A vaccine gives you the smallest amount of the disease into your body, so that your disease will build up your body will build up a tolerance, and then you will always be immune to that disease, is the theory.
Okay.
And so what happens is you got your MRIs, which are the ones that people are worried about. So when I was a kid, you used to get one vaccine, or maybe you get one needle for each thing. Now we have needles that are like multivitamin packed, and which will have your tuberculosis and the polio and the tetanus and all that type of stuff.
Well,
that'll all be shoved into you.
Well, that's my next question. Name at least 5 diseases we have vaccines for.
Okay, polio.
Yeah.
Tuberculosis. HPV. Thank God. Jeez. Thank God. That means like you weren't injected. What are you angry at me for? HPV. We got a vaccine for smallpox.
Mm-hmm.
The smallpox. What other one? Probably we had one for the Spanish flu because we got flu shots of vaccines.
Okay, that's 5.
Yeah,
good. According to the WHO, not the band.
Yeah,
got it. All right. There are licensed vaccines for how many infectious diseases?
I would say, it would be quite a high number. I'd say 80 or 90.
80 or 90.
Yeah.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many? Say 2,000. You're gonna go 10. There's no in between on this.
Have vaccines eradicated any diseases?
Yes.
And what are they?
Well, eradicated's a tricky one because we still have cases of polio happening in Africa and stuff like that. And I believe smallpox has been eradicated. I'm going to say smallpox has been eradicated.
Smallpox.
Yeah.
Okay. And how many deaths per year do vaccines prevent? Do they
it could be in the millions.
Millions?
It could be in the millions across the world. You can't quantify that number because you don't know how much a disease would have spread if we hadn't put the vaccine into use. We don't know how much smallpox or polio, whatever, would go bananas with.
Okay. And then now, what is herd immunity and how does it relate to vaccines?
Herd immunity is when we all get together and we all get the same cold so that we're all as a group going through the same problem at once so that we will all eventually become immune to it. And they tried that with the COVID in, I think, Switzerland or something like that. They tried herd immunity.
Okay. And did it work?
It did not. No. I believe the Swiss actually had a real bump in the whole thing and the countries around them were doing a lot better. And then people started blocking the Swiss from coming into their countries in Europe.
Okay. It was Sweden, but
Sweden.
Close, yeah. Close.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, hot people. Hot people.
Blonde.
Is there a vaccine for COVID-19? If not, how long till we get one?
We have ones in the trial phase right now, but we don't know. And there's a lot of problems with this right now because if they rush it out too quickly, even I'm pro-vaccine, I might be a bit skeptical. I want to see 100,000 people have it first, but then we also don't know what the effects will be in a year's time of something. So I believe that they have vaccines they think will work, but they still have to go through more tests and more time before they're sure that they do.
Okay. Couple more questions and we'll go here.
I think you're doing great.
Are there any adverse? All right, Jack. Are there any adverse effects from vaccines?
Well, it depends who you talk to. If you talk to an anti-vax
we'll
person,
talk about anti-vaxxers in a second. Them aside.
People have argued that it can lead to autism.
No. Don't talk about that. Like real adverse effect. Like at least what we would.
Yeah, your arm swells up. I watched my son get one. His arm bloody swelled up, and the bloody needles are painful as all balls.
Okay, but recoverable, right?
Yeah, they're recoverable things. I don't think there's a. Yeah, I don't think there's a lasting effect that we know of that we can categorically say with 100% definite that this is what's going to happen.
And I already know the answer to this, but anti-vaxxers, how do you feel about them and what do you think about that?
I think they're detrimental to our way of life.
And what are they, just so you?
They're people, I have friends who are anti-vaxxers. I have people who I like the company of, who I think
you
otherwise,
yeah,
who I really like, but they believe that vaccines lead to more problems. And what they sort of bank on is they bank on that you're going to vaccinate your kid,
right,
and everyone around's going to, so their kid's going to be all right sitting in the middle. But then we saw things like the outbreak, measles, put that down. Measles got a vaccine. When we had the outbreak of the measles at Disneyland that time, right? I was like, with my son, and it was his first time going. He was only like 2 or 3 or something. He'd been vaccinated, so I was like, come on, we're going to Disneyland. Because there was no lines.
Did you have the vaccine?
Oh, I hope so. But that was the sweet spot when the measles was kicking off.
Okay. And lastly, I don't know if Dr. Hackett, I put this in here. I just stumbled upon this. Do you know anything about a horse named Jim and how that relates to medicine or vaccines?
No.
Ever heard of that?
No, I've never heard of a horse named Jim. I've heard of a boy named Sue. I had a fight the other day with someone about Johnny Cash. Everyone knows my opinion on Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash is shit. Johnny Cash, if I hear another person go on that he had a 40-year career, the man in black. Okay, first of all, wearing black is just slimming, and that's why we all do it. His catchphrase, "Hi, I'm Johnny Cash," is just him saying hi and then his fucking name afterwards. That takes no effort.
Yeah, because back then there was not a lot of catchphrases. He was getting in on them. Really.
He got in on the ground floor with catchphrases. "Hi, I'm my name," right? And then everyone goes, "Oh, I had someone over my house, and they were like, oh, I just love Johnny Cash. I love Johnny Cash." It was an Italian friend of mine who said, "I learned to speak English of Johnny Cash. I love Johnny Cash." And I went, "Johnny Cash is shit." And he goes, "Oh no, Johnny Cash is one of the most important people in the music." And I said, "Name me 5 songs." Couldn't get past 3.
Ooh.
No one can. "Walk the Line," "Boy Good Sue," "Folsom City Blues," "Ring of Fire."
Because he's definitely one of those ones that
Go
people
away.
say that they love to sound cool.
No,
I can name you more than 5 Johnny
you
Cash
could be.
songs.
You're an odd bird, right?
Yeah, you're
But
an
I've never driven back down Sunset and seen someone in a convertible come by me. Never happened. But I've seen plenty of you wearing the T-shirt where he's given the finger. You can piss off the lot of you Johnny Cash fans. You're a bunch of frauds. Anyway, back to.
You don't know anything about a horse named Jim.
No,
is what
I don't
you're
know
saying.
anything
Okay.
about a horse named Jim.
Okay, I think that's it.
The hate mail we're about to receive
Oh, yeah.
is going
There's a lot
to
of
be.
this.
Someone's going to go, well, and they'll go out the Folsom City, Folsom Prison Blues. That audience had to be there. His most famous concert is an audience that were mandated to be in the room. I'd sell out every gigs if I only played prisons.
Right. You should, actually.
It'd be sad if you didn't.
People are like, I'll just stay in solitary.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Dr. Hackett. I've got. By the way, saying Dr. Hackett really feels demeaning as it falls out of my mouth, but I know I'm talking to you and not him. for a second there, I'm like, Dr. Hackett.
One day I could be a doctor.
Because Jack's over there going, "You're doing a good job, Jim."
What bizarro world is there a Dr. Hackett?
I think there's 10 of them in my family. There's a lot of them.
Oh, so you're a disappointment.
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. I want to change my answer. They test vaccines on Jack.
They work out great.
His aunt is getting upset right now. She doesn't like you picking on her nephew.
Oh,
so.
no, I don't care.
She'll pile on. She's got dirt.
Is Jack? We have to do it before we get to the vaccine. We have to look at, is Jack popular in the family? Is he one of the more loved ones, or does everyone get together at Thanksgiving and go, "Oh, Jack's here"?
Well, no, Jack lives on the West Coast with you guys, and we're all on the East Coast.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I only get to see him on like your show.
Yeah, but if the wind blows right, you still get to smell him.
I'm sorry I have the fans on right now.
Okay, so Dr. Hackett, on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the best, how well did Jim get an accuracy on vaccines?
I'd say he got like an 8. He did really well.
What?
Yep,
Okay.
I was actually kind of surprised. Like
Ah.
some of your discussion wasn't like medically accurate, but you had the right idea.
Yeah.
Okay. What about confidence, Kelly?
I'm giving him a 9 on confidence. I want him to get large pox.
Yeah.
Baby.
Yeah, he has 17 before I even give it to him. I'm going to give him a 5 so he has large pox.
Large
Fred
pox.
said it right
Large
there.
pox.
Yeah, large pox, Jim. All right. Okay, so let's get into it. What is a vaccine? Jim said something to stop you from getting a disease, an injection. It's always an injection, small portion of the actual disease to build immunity. How close was that, Dr. Hackett?
That was pretty close. Like what vaccines do is they take part of the germ and, we call the term denature it, make it weak, or take enough of the germ to give your body a view of the germ inside your body to make antibodies to it. So that's what you meant, is you make antibodies, and antibodies are made all the time, but they usually aren't made until they're needed. So if, for example, somebody coughs on you with the flu and you have antibodies, the antibodies of the flu suddenly start being made, and it will surround the flu and stop it from invading you and making you sick. And it's really important for those big diseases, like you said. And I did love that you added measles at the end there, Jim, because measles is a hot topic for the anti-vaxxers. And it sort of is the one that people recognize the most, but it is a deadly illness. And we give them a little tiny bit of measles that's different than most of the other vaccines because it is a live vaccine. We've tried to do a dead vaccine with measles over and over and over, and you don't get enough immunity. You actually have to take the measles virus, kind of make it weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker, and then finally inject you with it. So you do get a little bit of live measles, in order to become immune to it.
Sorry, so what's the difference between a live and a dead vaccine? I'm a little confused here.
So a dead vaccine means that, like, let's take whooping cough, or what's well known as pertussis. They'll take the pertussis germ, they strip the outside off, all you have is the inside, you grind it all up, and you give that part of the pertussis vaccine. I'm making it as simple as possible.
Sure.
But you give that to people, and if you give them 5 in the first 5 years of life, if you're exposed to whooping cough, you don't get it. However, with measles, you can't do it. You can't break it up and give it. If you give it in little pieces, your body doesn't ever become immune to it. So you actually have to take the measles virus, and they put like denaturing agents. They make it weaker and weaker and weaker. And you're giving it, and it grows in your system, and it activates a portion of your immune system that can then recognize it the next time you're coughed on by somebody with measles. And that's the unfortunate thing, because there are a lot of people who are immune suppressed. They can't get measles vaccine. They'll die if they get a measles vaccine. So that's why it's really important that people with strong immune systems take that vaccine to confer herd immunity and make it safe for the person that can't take that vaccine.
It's always a cough, huh? The cough is the problem, it seems like. Maybe if we got...
That's correct. Like if
we could get people to stop coughing, then there would have been no problems, right?
I've always thought that about... Okay, so like pain is illness leaving your body or whatever, or you know, why does sick? Why when you? I think you should be sick once in your life, just when you die, and the rest of them are just pointless, and they're just things you have to get over, and they're little hurdles. You should just go.
Your body has to know to rest or drink water.
No. The rest of your life you should be fine. And then the dead one, you just go, and then you go, oh, well, that's the end of me.
Okay.
Or it should be fun. It should be like an orgasm. You should go, oh, I'm going to die.
Well, I'll send an email to Mother Nature.
Yeah, I was going to say, I like how you think it's a choice. We're all like, we should get sick maybe once a year.
I'll talk to management.
Really, like, there's so many pointless illnesses where you're like, ugh, this is.
You know you're
going to be better. You know you're going to be better, but you're like, ugh.
What's a non-pointless illness?
Well, at the moment, I've been talking to you. I've got the early onsets of arthritis in my fingers, right?
Yeah.
I've got these early onsets of that, right? Which means when I'm older, I'm going to... It's just annoying.
Right.
Just an annoying, stupid thing that's not going to help me in any way. It's just going to make me worse at golf and bowling. And I'm already bad at both.
I've never even heard you go bowling.
I know. I was going to say, I'm like, is bowling?
When's the last time you went bowling?
The holes hurt my fingers.
Worse at bowling.
Oh, yeah, I've never scored over a 150.
We're definitely going bowling when this is all done.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not Jim.
That was
arthritis.
Was it you, Jack, who told me, like, after Corona, the first week of Corona, Jack's eating at Jerry's Deli in Studio City, and then his friends were like, how about we go bowling? Could there be a worse
sticking your fingers
thing
into
to
holes
do?
that everybody
Wearing
else?
other people's shoes and putting your fingers in other people's holes and grabbing it off a thing that everyone's been grabbing and then just eating crap. Like the chance of you
nachos.
not getting coronavirus bowling.
Yeah.
Or just any other
drying your
disease.
hand on that air that gets pushed out of there. Somebody's coughing in the back there.
I think I got Corona going bowling 4 years ago.
That's where it started.
That's how
You're
powerful
so ahead
it
of
was.
your time.
I think there was just a dead bat inside that air machine.
Jim, when asked where does the word vaccine come from, said it's the Latin to vaccinate, and said it's very clearly from the Vatican. I don't think he was right on that.
Not too right, no.
That's where I
I thought he was
my
going
point.
to say the answer because he said it was from the Latin, and I said, oh, he's going to say it right. Vax is the word for cow. And the originator, the person that is given the credit for the first vaccine is a man named Edward Jenner, a doctor. In 1796, so another answer.
Yeah, you gave him an 8, and that's 2 wrong right there. But I know he did better, but you're being very nice to him. So
yeah, so Vax was a cow, and he noticed that the milkmaids who contracted cowpox from milking the cow udders, and cowpox was like you got ugly blisters on your hands, but you basically just were very uncomfortable until it resolved. They were not dying of smallpox. And he thought, well, that's interesting. I'm going to scrape some of those cowpox when, off the cows when they have them, and I'm going to save it. And what he did is he saved it, and he took a little bit of it, and he made a scrape into people's arms and put some of that icky stuff in there, and they developed these cowpox pustules. And over time, when they were exposed to smallpox, because it was around all the time, it was a scourge. All these people that got these cowpox vaccines, lived. So he called it a vaccine, which meant a cow, inoculation, essentially.
Wow.
All right. Wow.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Because it wouldn't have been as popular if they were called cow shots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I asked about inoculations versus vaccines. I was trying because for at least what I saw, that's sort of the same thing. But I kind of wanted to ask that question because inoculation, when did that first occur versus the vaccine that you spoke of with Edward Jenner? And I know.
Do you want me to tell you about the Chinese?
Yeah,
Okay.
please. Yeah.
So I didn't know this actually. I just, when you asked me to do the podcast, I thought, I wonder when the first vaccine was, because everybody knows about Edward, Jenner's work and the word vaccine, et cetera. But when I went back into the archives of like the Philadelphia physicians dedicated to vaccines, whatever that is, it's an interesting website. They said that in the year 1000, it was well known that the Chinese would scrape the scab off of people with smallpox and grind the scab up and through a straw blow it up the noses of royalty. And they would get a little bit sick with a little bit sick, but it was dead. It was dead. And then the royalty survived many of the smallpox epidemics. So when they realized that and passed it on, that news traveled all through Asia, through the Middle East, all the way down to Africa. And they were using that technique. I mean, you had to survive it. Smallpox is about 30% lethal. Jeez. But if you did survive smallpox and you could get the scabs off these people and grind them up and save them and pass them along and inoculate your community, they were finding that a lot of people survived smallpox. So in my mind, the vaccination effort was probably 1,000 years old before we got our hands on it.
So I was off on that one.
Yeah, and that's the nasal insufflation that I was talking about.
That's the nasal but I was right on that, the theory that you put a little bit up there.
Yeah.
And another little bit of interesting stuff, which I didn't know, was that they found smallpox in Egyptian mummies in the year 300 BC. So smallpox was on the planet for over 2,000 years before we were able to eradicate it.
Wow.
Now, but was it something that back then that they didn't know that was the disease or something? Because it's like that, about HIV, right? For a long time there, and correct me if I'm wrong, they were having people dying of HIV, but they were just saying they were dying of pneumonia or they were dying from this or they were dying from that. They weren't acknowledging for a while there that was the problem with the blood. So back then, when you say smallpox was around for thousands of years, did people know that was what was going on? Am I making sense?
No, yeah, they probably had a different name for. I don't know. They probably.
It was called variola, and actually, they did know. They called it the name variola. They called it smallpox, even in like the old whatever's. But you're absolutely right. They did not understand the theory of germs. They did not know there was such a thing. It was Louis Pasteur that discovered germs and the germ theory. They thought it was related to filth, to poverty, different things. They didn't understand.
That germ thing that he came up with, right? That would have been a hard sell. The first guy like Louis Pasteur, when he invented germs, when he had to go to everyone like this, he had to go, so there's these things and you can't see them and they're jumping from skin to skin. And if you don't wash your hands, they'll get up into your body. And then other things carry germs and this and like that.
It's a hard sell now.
Yeah.
There's people that don't believe that COVID-19's real.
I know, but
people just started washing their hands this year.
Yeah.
I didn't know what soap was.
No, but that's a hard sell to sell people. Like even to the surgeons, you have to clean your knives before you cut into these people.
Yeah.
Because that's carrying that's mental.
Yeah. This was already answered. When was the vaccine invented? Who discovered it? You said Marie Curie. I think you know that's wrong. Now, you also said Marie Antoinette. There's no Maries involved.
She said, let them eat vaccines.
So Edward Jenner was credited with the term vaccine in the time, but now, as Dr. Hackett just told us,
is he related to Kylie Jenner?
It's got to be.
Gotta be. There can't be that many Jenners.
They've been changing.
They finally
the world
did something
since,
good. We discovered it.
It's like they started out so well.
Yeah.
And really
and is Edward's name now Sarah?
The sad thing is Edward Jenner, if he was alive, would only have about 200 followers on
yeah, for sure.
And they'd be like, big deal, vaccine.
Well, unless he gets ass implants.
Who was the polio guy's name? Like Veruca Salt or something. What was his name?
Veruca Salt's really wild.
Who invented the polio vaccine?
Yeah, it was like something salt. Something salt.
100% it wasn't Veruca Salt.
Salk.
Oh, there.
Veruca Salk.
Salk. Jonas Salk.
Like
yeah,
I
there you
said.
go.
Yeah.
Thanks, doctor.
Jonas Salk. Veruca Salk. That's
Yeah.
how I always remember it. Veruca Salk. My mother had the polio, Dr. Hackett. Oh, well, that's all right. No, she lived way past it, but my mother could bring polio up in any conversation. She'd be having a bad day. She'd get angry at you. Oh, I didn't mean to get so angry, but, I did have polio as a child. She could...
That was a scourge on the earth, even like with your mom and my dad. He would talk about how they shut down all the pools in the schools when they had a polio outbreak because it was horrible.
Oh, she had to learn to walk again. I tease my mother a lot on stage and stuff, but I do feel sorry for her about that. She was bed restricted for a very long time. She could have died, had to learn to walk again, and then always had joint problems and that from then on.
Part of the problem is you guys go to vets for doctors too, don't you? So,
He's like, her hind legs aren't working so well.
Just if you had pediatricians, maybe.
That's why I said like the polio. That vaccine had to be. My mother was born in the mid 1940s. She had polio. She must have gotten they didn't have the vaccine till the mid 1950s. Am I right on that? Polio vaccine?
Exactly right, in the 50s.
Yeah, in the 50s.
Okay, so how is a vaccine produced? Jim said in big metal machines, kind of like how they make sriracha.
Yeah.
And it goes like that.
Yeah, and go right there. What does the lady say at the end?
I don't remember what you said.
She says, "I don't mind this job. Other people find it boring. It gives me time to think."
That's not quite what I meant. I said, how is a vaccine produced? But maybe Dr. Hackett
With
you can
love.
shed some light on that.
It's kind of true.
Hey!
It was just the noise that was true. The noise
Did they make it at the sriracha factory?
No, not at the same fact. Don't be silly, Forrest.
They grow the germs in, unfortunately, animals usually, and then they save it. Now, honestly, they have strains that now they just have in big containers, and they can reproduce the strains very easily, and they are checked very carefully for contamination and things like that. But with the kind of microbiology techniques and chemical techniques that they have now, they can check all of those batches very frequently so that we know that they're safe and they're uncontaminated.
Is there ever been a moment where like someone's just walking across the office with like a beaker, and then they're
I was literally just thinking the exact same thing.
And then they go, "Oh no," because like I hear that there's smallpox being kept in a vial in a safe for us to keep on making vaccines and stuff. Like we have the germ, but it's under lock and key. Is that correct? This James Bondiness of that we own these diseases still?
So there is definitely smallpox, probably 500 feet in a vault somewhere. And in fact, the last case of smallpox in the 1970s was a young lady that worked above a lab that made smallpox vaccine.
And she made cupcakes.
She'd go up through the vents and she contracted it and died from it. And so that's the horrible thing is sometimes things do go wrong in a lab, but no, they really don't walk across the room with a beaker anymore.
How do they get the beaker across the room then?
Yep, I don't think they use beakers anymore, Jim.
I imagine there's a system where they put a tray on the back of a dog.
Yeah. You so love beakers. Have you ever seen that I Love Lucy episode when she's working in the vaccine factory? And just, shoving in her mouth.
They keep coming. Hey, Lucy.
Yeah.
I'm doubly vaccinated. This one, I think, Jim. So Jim said they test vaccines on rats, monkeys, homeless people, students, than us. But and COVID-19. So maybe we could just talk about that. So right now, how is that testing going with a COVID-19 vaccine? How's that working? Who's that being tested on?
Well, there are, I believe, about 290 companies in the world making an effort to create the vaccine. And coronavirus might be more difficult to understand because it's an RNA virus, and not to bore you, but it can't replicate itself. So it's not like a germ. Like if a strep throat person coughs on you with strep can go in your body and it can multiply in your body on its own. Coronavirus is an RNA virus. It doesn't have enough capacity to replicate itself. It has to invade a cell. And then once it goes into the cell, it uses the cell's machinery to replicate itself. And when it makes a ton of them, it breaks up the cell and it busts up, and the rest of it releases cytokine and kills the person. So it's a different way of making a vaccine than a vaccine for whooping cough or tetanus, which, by the way, they make a tetanus toxin antibody. It's not actually the tetanus germ that they're making the antibody to. So there are all different kinds of things that you're trying to fight, because tetanus in and of itself doesn't kill you, but it makes a toxin that kills you.
No, you said 290. Was that correct? 290 companies.
And it's kind of almost like an arms race.
It's like a space race. It's arms race, right? So the company makes it first, makes billions and billions of dollars, right?
No question.
So they're not doing. There's not 290 companies going, we have to solve this for the good of mankind. Has there ever been vaccines that have been given away for free? Has there ever been, like, did Veruca Salt go, you can have it, giving it to the human race?
No, she was notably a terrible person.
Well, I will say that, that is actually a real big fear, that the companies will sort of go only to, like, the wealthy people. But when H1N1 hit in 2009, do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had it.
Yeah, you had it, Jack?
Yeah.
Well,
she doesn't even care about you, Jack. She didn't even know you had H1N1.
It was in Hong Kong. I had it in Hong Kong.
It was, that was the swine flu, bird flu. Swine flu.
A version of it, yes. And it affected children much worse than adults. It was a really scary time.
Oh, yeah, Jack's only 9 years old.
And the United States government did not have, like, the flu shot had been released, and it was actually killing children. And so the government stepped up, made a really fast addition to making a new flu vaccine within 3 months, which is phenomenal. And then we got to distribute it, and we could not charge for the vaccine. We were given the vaccine. It was not charged. I don't know really who paid for it, but we took a whole bunch of vaccine and gave it out. And there wasn't, it was a public health measure. Right. In answer to, do they ever give vaccine out for free? That would be a recent example of one.
But, like, in countries like Australia and Britain, where there's free healthcare, they would be getting the vaccines for free. But I guess the governments still get gouged for the price of that. I don't know.
Someone's paying
somewhere.
You have some philanthropists like Bill Gates that are donating billions of dollars to certain companies in the United States and in the Western world, France, Switzerland, the United Kingdom. I don't know how much is going to which country, but he's donating billions of dollars to make a free vaccine, and also for testing.
Then you get those conspiracy theorists that say that he's creating a vaccine for population control, which is, like, so frustrating because he's such a philanthropist and helping so many people. And
yeah, I get the flu shot every year, and then I had a friend that told me, they microchip you with the flu shot. I'm like, and then what? I have a phone. I've got credit cards. Like, good, microchip me. Follow where I'm going.
Also, the microchipping has been a rumor that's been happening for 40 years. Like, every election year, there's a microchipping rumor. All of that stuff. It's just, like, it's so fucking mental.
Yeah. I mean, but it's like, if you're already, the whole being tracked thing, it's like, they got you already. If you're worried about that, your cell phone's always on in your pocket. So they got you. But anyways, okay. So, name at least 5 diseases we have vaccines for. You said polio, tuberculosis, HPV, smallpox, flu shots, and you also said measles. I think you crushed that one.
Yeah,
crushed.
That's good.
Crushed.
Well, comment. Smallpox is not available anymore. It's eradicated from the planet in the 1970s.
That was another question Jim got right. You did well, Jim.
Right. So if we eradicated it, so we no longer need the vaccine, but you say there's some kept in a safe in 500 meters under the ground. So let's say it gets back out. We could activate that vaccine again. We're ready to go. We know the formula. Someone's got the recipe. Like, there's Coca-Cola's recipe, and we got the recipe for that vaccine. We're ready to go.
Yes.
Oh, good. All right.
Wing of bat.
Do we assume that if it came back, though, it would be the same strain and that vaccine would be effective?
It's wing of bat, eye of newt. What is a newt? Why were we always putting eye of newt? Witches are obsessed with putting eye of newt and things.
A newt's like a salamander.
You know a lot of witches.
I know a lot of witch movies.
Sorry, Dr. We keep cutting you off with actual information. Yeah.
Okay. The pox viruses really don't mutate fast enough, so yes, it should be covered.
Okay.
All right.
We're good. We're all good on that. According to the World Health Organization, there are licensed vaccines for how many infectious diseases?
I said 90. I think I'm way out.
80 or 90. Do you have this information, Dr. Hackett? I saw this somewhere, but I don't remember where.
No, I didn't look it up for the World Health. The CDC states that we have 26 vaccines in the United States.
Yeah, and the World Health, it was 25 or 20. Yeah, it's the same number. Okay, so I thought it would just be more, but I guess we don't.
Okay, so an MRI shot, how many diseases does that cover at once?
A what shot?
The MRI, that's the multi shot.
You mean MMR?
MMR. The
MRI is like magnetic.
Not MRI. What's the one that the anti-vaxxers hate? What's it called? It's the
measles, mumps, rubella.
And what?
MMR.
Yeah.
MMR. Okay.
Measles, mumps, rubella.
Yeah. Sorry, what was it? Mumps?
Measles, mumps, rubella.
Okay.
Measles, rubella. That's another one. Rubella hasn't been around for a while. We got rid of rubella.
We got rid of rubella, but not before we had a pretty bad outbreak.
Right. What? Here's a question for you. What diseases are they working on? And anyone can answer this. What are they working on to fix with the vaccines? What? Like I know they've been working on an HIV one forever.
COVID.
They'd be working on it. I'm sure they've been
19.
working on it. They must be working on herpes since the 1970s, right?
Yeah.
So that one's got to have someone working on it. But apart from that, your COVID,
Ebola.
How close are you getting the Ebola one up and running? Ebola, wasn't that? That's like old school Ebola, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now that you got the COVID, like COVID is like the Taliban, and Ebola's like the IRA.
Yeah, Dr. Hackett, your mic cut out a little bit there. So what
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better when you lean in a little bit. Yeah.
Well, let me just say that we're Americans, so we forget that one of the world's leading causes of death is malaria.
Oh
yeah.
And you get that from mosquitoes, don't you?
Yes.
Bloody mosquitoes.
You have to have a certain genus of mosquito, and we don't have the genus here. But one of the fears is that as the world heats up and we become more tropical, we may get that mosquito back here. So they're working on malaria, Zika virus.
Zika, that was one that we forgot about. Remember the Zika?
There was a couple cases in Miami. I remember that.
And the pregnant women and all that.
Yeah.
The Zika was no good.
No.
But you said Ebola. We have a vaccine for Ebola? We don't.
Where they're working on it, but we do not have it. They work a lot harder on vaccines that hit the wealthy world, because if you want to give a vaccine where Ebola is, it's very poor African countries, and who pays for that?
Yeah, so we need a vaccine for the summertime blues.
We can't leave our houses. Please give us medicine.
There ain't no cure for the summertime blues.
Jack said two things all podcast. That was one of them.
Get to work on that.
What is it? So vaccines that have eradicated any diseases. Jim said smallpox. So that's correct. Is that the only one we've eradicated, or
rubella?
Rubella.
No, we haven't eradicated rubella. It's still in the world. So I guess it depends on what you're saying, and we eradicated polio from the Western, like Canada, the United States, Mexico, and South America has had polio eradicated.
And tuberculosis is eradicated in most countries as well, right? But it's still
not so much. No, we still see a lot of tuberculosis in the world.
Jeez. I got pulled out of a lot. I was once coming back into England, and I was in Australia, and I may have been hungover, and I may have been drinking on the plane, and I walked in 24-hour flight. And I was all sleepy and pale and just like that. I got pulled out of the line. Maybe they had those temperature testing things, and I was brought into a room for a tuberculosis screening. And I'm like, I'm Australian. Yeah, I'm Australian. I've just come from Australia.
I'm Australian. We can't get tuberculosis.
I just look sickly. There's nothing wrong with me.
I'm always pale.
I used to be in school like this. Miss, I don't feel well. Could I go down to the nurse's office? And the teacher would always be like, oh, you do look very pale. And then off I'd go skipping my way down.
But what did they do to screen you, Jim?
Oh, they did something, an X-ray or something to check my lungs. Like it was a proper tuberculosis screening room. It was like it was a lung check thing. It was like a proper thing, and I remember I was there for quite a while.
An X-ray in the airport.
They had They had it. There might have been a breakout in
It was at
tuberculosis.
his vet's office.
Did they put you on the conveyor belt where the luggage was? That's good.
No tuberculosis here.
Yeah, they did a cavity search.
Yeah, that's so weird.
And they said, we're searching for tuberculosis.
You're not going
in
to find it down
condoms
there.
that
Yeah.
you've swallowed.
Okay. I asked you how many deaths per year do vaccines prevent. You said in the millions. I don't know if there's an actual number, Dr. Hackett.
You can't
but-
quantify that number, can you?
Well, actually, if you go to the CDC website and they talk about vaccines, over 20 years, they believe that it saves somewhere in the order of 750,000 deaths in children alone.
Every year?
Over 20 years.
Oh, 20. Okay.
It saves 20 million cases,
Oh, wow.
but 730 deaths.
Deaths. Wow.
So
So,
math, I guess it's somewhere around 30 some odd thousand cases of deaths a year.
yeah.
I got told, I believe, now, am I wrong in saying it? I believe I had whooping cough as a child once, but I got over it. Is that a hard one to get over? I don't remember it because I was a child, but I've been passed on this
I
information.
never knew what that was. You just go and cough. Like, what is it?
What it is you cough, but you're excellent at basketball.
Well, you cough and cough and cough, and if you're a small baby, you cough so much you can't breathe. You die from like oxygen deprivation. And yes, you're right. It was common, and a lot of little kids got it, and they got over it. But it's like the cough is very much a whoop, like a type of loud cough, and it's very painful, and it can last months.
And after you cough, you go, there it is. Like that. That's how people know. Woo!
Edit
Please
point.
play a clip of whoop, there it is.
I asked
It's a
Jim.
fun disease.
Super
Super fun till you die from not breathing. The herd immunity, Jim said, is when everybody gets sick together and hangs out. That's kind of what he said in Switzerland.
Yeah.
They did that for COVID. It was Sweden. I corrected
Sweden.
you. But I read something different. I think that's what people think herd immunity is. But can you speak about herd immunity? I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, herd immunity, let's see. I was saying in the note I sent you that it's kind of a mathematical model, and it depends on the germ.
Yeah.
So if, like, for example, TB, if people, it's a really hard germ to spread. So if you have a small, like maybe 30% of the people are protected, you're not going to see much TB. But in measles, for example, if 100 people are in a room and you need about 95% herd immunity to not get measles because it spreads so much and it's aerosolized. So you want to make sure that 95 or more people in a room of 100 have the measles protection, the antibody. Or if it's 90% and you have 10 people in the room that are not protected to measles, when someone coughs, at least 5 or 6 of those people will get measles.
Wow.
Much
Yeah.
less.
So
Sure.
and that's what I was reading. Is it said it's usually achieved through vaccination, but can also occur through natural infection. So because some people, even in the comedy community, were saying like, oh, you just get sick and then everybody builds up the immunity. But there has to be some people with antibodies that are known in that group, right? Otherwise, everyone could just
Right.
die.
Like, we're hoping that we can give you herd immunity without getting the disease.
Yeah.
If you get the disease, if you get COVID, and that is exactly what happened with Sweden, unfortunately, is they thought, okay, let people get it enough and get herd immunity. But what we don't know with COVID, because it's new, is what is the percentage of people that need to get it to confer herd immunity? Is it 30%, 40%, 60%? That doesn't actually work so well if you have to achieve it naturally and people die from it.
Right.
Versus getting an inoculation. So if you could just be patient, wear your mask, practice social distancing, and wait for the vaccine, that seems to me to make a lot more sense.
Patient. Kidding me?
Say bye to grandma because, bye grandma because, we're going to get hurt.
So
that's
what was when I was saying about the vaccine coming out and me being skeptical about how long it should be out before I take it, is that nonsense? Once the FDA say, I don't even know if it's FDA, but once the medical people say this vaccine's good, should I just believe it because it's been tested, or is there always a risk?
Ooh, good question. And I think that I I'm asked that every day, by the way, maybe 30, 40, 50 times a day. And we're trying really hard to see who's making it and how they're making it. And I'm asked all the time, will you take it, Dr. Hackett? And my answer is probably. It's highly likely I'll take it because the companies that are making the vaccine are companies that are very accustomed to making vaccines, and they're putting their best scientists on it. And I feel comfortable that I will be taking a vaccine from when it comes out.
Right. Okay.
And they've also injected it into thousands and thousands and thousands of volunteers. Some of the studies have 30, 40, 50,000 volunteers already, and they're not having side effects. The big question is, will you take that vaccine and will it be protective? I don't think I'd worry so much about the side effects as I would about whether or not 1 or 2 vaccines will protect me.
Has there ever been a vaccine that has been given that, in hindsight, it wasn't tested enough? Because I know that we've got medicines like flumitamide, right? And then the pregnant ladies took it and the children came out. So has there ever been a vaccine that we sort of went, yeah, we didn't do that one enough?
Yes. In fact, in the early 1800s, they were making diphtheria vaccine. And remember, diphtheria, I don't know, nobody knows what it is anymore because it's pretty much eradicated from this hemisphere. But it was an infection that was airborne, and it caused you to make a very thick coating in your throat, and then your throat closed up and you died basically of asphyxiation. And it hit children very quickly. So they made a vaccine for it, but they didn't really know what they were doing so much. And some of the companies injected diphtheria into some of the population that was still very active diphtheria. So they actually gave the patient diphtheria.
Well, and I'm a big fan of the vaccines. I've taken all of them, given all of them to son. I've taken every single one you can take. I should say that I used to be a small Spanish girl.
Well, congrats on your career.
Thank you.
Vaccines work.
The accent is almost gone. So that when I asked you if there were any adverse effects, obviously there are some side effects. You mentioned like arm swelling, fever, something like there are something like that. But we can talk about anti-vaxxers now. And you said that you think they're detrimental to our way of life.
I think the anti-vax. Is there any credible link between autism and vaccines?
It's been debunked. It's been absolutely. Can I talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. Sure, yeah,
please.
Talk about it for more than a minute. Only 3 minutes.
Yeah. Only 3?
No, take your time.
Yeah, she needs to be in even numbers. She's had a vaccine.
Well, the whole thing with autism is that it was recognized in the 1990s. Before that, honestly, people didn't recognize it. They talked a little bit about it, but they started to seriously recognize that there was a disorder in children that involved mostly language and social behavior. And those two things occur in your second year of life, right? Like, we don't really talk that much about language and how you react with other kids and stuff like that when you're 8 months old, but we certainly talk about it when you're 18 months old. So, Andrew Wakefield was a physician, and in 1998, he published an article in a very tiny little icky article that made its way into a really into the Lancet, which is like the New England Journal here, and said that MMR given to children causes autism. And what he was basing it on was a study with like 25 kids. And you have to remember that when we give MMR, we give it at 1 year of age. And then if you become quote unquote autistic in the second year of age, it had to be the MMR. So we was using a temporally based model, like, look, if you got it then, it had to be this. Unfortunately, that took off, got a lot of traction. I remember watching with horror that, our Congress was debating whether we should suspend MMR because of this issue with autism. And one of the congressmen stood up and talked about it for a long time because his grandchild was diagnosed with autism. Many, 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 many studies have debunked that. They've been well run. They've been filled with thousands and thousands of children. And unfortunately, autism is a heartbreaking illness for a lot of people. I mean, you have mild autism, but you can have severe autism. And so there is no known one cause. So when you can say, okay, it's MMR, that's the cause, you got your one cause, it's like a bullet point, boom, social media took off. And that was really the big resurgence of anti-vaccination movements. So you had some, everybody knows Jenny McCarthy, all that other stuff. But for the rest of us, we really spent a lot of time looking at that study and saying, is that real? Could that be? And it's not true.
Yeah, it says he was discredited too here now as a physician.
Well, he was stripped of his doctor because turned out what he did was he put that study out, and then he became the expert for a lot of different lawsuits and was paid thousands and who knows, millions of dollars to be the expert. So he did it, but it was really disingenuous, the reason why he did it and what he did with it. He's been stripped of his doctor title. He's now Mr. Andrew Wakefield, and he's got it's like in medicine, he's got a notoriety for being no good.
Yeah, we actually had asked him to be the expert on this episode before we asked you, but he was busy.
Sorry,
no, not at all. Just kidding.
No. We only have doctors on this show.
Sometimes not.
And I doubt he's wearing a mask. But anyways, so unfortunately that took a lot of traction, and we can't seem to break that. We can't seem to convince people.
Well, we also have a president who somewhat agrees with it, right? Who's an anti-vaxxer.
Well, he doesn't agree with anything scientific.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, hair transplants. He's bought into that science.
Yeah, when he makes his anti-vaccine comments, they're in the same category as don't wear a mask, and the list is long. It makes your head hurt.
But you should put disinfectant into your blood, correct?
Mm-hmm. If you're Donald Trump, you should.
Shots fired.
Pew, pew, pew.
Dr. Hackett, eh?
Maybe don't say that on air. I don't know.
No, you can say that. Don't worry about it. You'll have a few. You'll lose a few people that won't come.
He's 100% not going to listen to this episode.
No.
Yeah.
We're
He's going to listen to bees.
This isn't on Fox and Friends.
Do you know about this horse named Jim thing that I found? Does that?
I do. In the early 1900s, it goes back to what animals do they use to make a vaccine, and they did use horses all the time. So there was a horse named Jim that they, inoculated with diphtheria, and then they drew his blood and they made the diphtheria toxin for distribution. And what they did not know about this horse at the time was he had tetanus. So when they injected a bunch of these kids with diphtheria vaccine, they gave the kids tetanus.
Jeez.
So a bunch of the kids died from tetanus from the diphtheria vaccine. And so the horse named Jim was like a big screaming, hey, look, if you're doing these vaccines, don't do harm with your vaccine. Fix it. Not all vaccines were well made.
Yeah.
Right.
They're much better now for a million different reasons, but the technology back then was not there.
I just thought it was funny because it was a horse named Jim. So I found, and then it said that this incident and similar one involving smallpox led to the passage of the Biologics Control Act of 1902. And then eventually the U.S. Food and Drug Administration in 1906. Right. So it did lead to that, the horse named Jim. I asked you, I don't know if you were able to do we have this dinner party fact thing here where our expert gives us one fact, obscure, interesting, or a story or something.
No, she already gave us a fact early on where we all went, whoa, and now I've forgotten it.
Which one was that?
I don't know, I've forgotten it.
Oh, the vaccine that comes from cows. The name.
Cow shots.
Yeah, so you don't have to give us another one, but if you have something.
I'll give you a couple because I found some interesting things. Well, about the vaccine being from the year 1000 in China, I thought that was kind of
that's a good one.
You've given us a couple already, yeah.
Yeah, and then I didn't know this, but during the when Washington was doing the hunt north, fighting the redcoats, he and his militia were up as far as Quebec, fighting them. And he was winning, and then his whole militia got smallpox, and 50% of the militia died of smallpox, and he had to retreat and go all the way back down to New York. And at that time, he made all of his recruits receive a smallpox vaccine before he would continue. It was a mandatory vaccine. So mandatory vaccines are old. I mean, we're talking 1774. He mandated that they have a vaccine. But if that had not happened, America would still be way up in Canada. We own part of Quebec. Because that would have been considered United States territory.
So getting a vaccine is the most patriotic thing you can do, we should say.
Yeah. Also, those women in Quebec.
I'm going to say, if you like baseball, what I always say is take one for the team. If your kids are healthy, please get the vaccine because your next door neighbor with the heart transplant can't take that vaccine. If your kids are going to play together, your kid will kill that kid. And then they go, what are you talking about?
Right.
What are you talking about? I'll go, well, if your kid gets measles and goes next door and your next door neighbor with the heart transplant who needs to take medication so he doesn't, fight his heart, he gets measles, he'll die. He'll die in one day. And then they go like this. They go, Johnny, I told you weren't getting a shot today, but you're getting a shot.
My son had 2 of them at once, and I had to take him in, and I was like, all right, man, it's just going to be a little needle. And then he was like, they put it in his arm, and the needle came out, and he, like a cartoon character, went across the room, was in the corner, and went, that was no little needle. And then the nurse gave 0 fucks. She had done this to so many children, and she's like, is he ready for his next one? And I'm like, all right, nurse.
She probably started out being really entertaining.
Yeah,
with
like
the kids
that, right?
And then just
and so I had to pin him down and in a bear hug and hold him. And I go, just put it in. You'll get some Lego.
Tell them to climb a tree next time. That's what I did. Yeah, you just reminded me of something too. So cancer patients, I remember this from my mom. When they get chemo, it wipes out all of the vaccines that they got. So all the vaccines my mama got were wiped out by the chemo, but then she couldn't get them because her immune system was compromised. And that was one of the other. So people need to think about that as well, not just the heart transplant, but anybody. There's so many different patients that are susceptible to these diseases and then can't get the vaccines that wish they could.
I love that you said if you're a real patriot, you would get the shot.
Yeah.
Because it's true. If you really care about your neighbor or your teacher or your doctor, with COVID right now, I have patients and they come in and they've got their mask around here. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but you need to put your mask up here, honey, because I'm 63. I don't really want to die of COVID. Okay. Yeah. And they're like, oh, and then, I'll say, and they'll go, but doctor, I feel like I'm suffocating in my mask.
You're just doing that because you want the compliment because you look so good for 63. Yeah. You're like that because I'm 63 and they're like, no, I am. And I don't want to, you can't die. You look so youthful and young. And then you go, oh, stop it. And then you go, pull down that mask and kiss me.
100%.
That's what happens.
But you were saying they can't breathe. They say they can't breathe in their mask, but that's BS, right?
We're in a mask for 8-10 hours a day.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm sympathetic. I really know what you feel like as I'm, my glasses steam up all day, etc. Yeah. Look, we're giving shots out in our parking lot. And the reason why we're doing that, not everybody, we're bringing our children into the office, at different ages. Like definitely a 2-year-old can't do a telemedicine visit. But we have to see our kids and we're bringing them in and we're there all day long. I have a staff of 25 and they're relentless. They just want to get the job done. And so we're bringing them in with almost nobody in the office, totally masked and gloved, etc. But if you're 11 or 12 and you can talk to me, you can kind of stand in front of the camera. I can do enough of your physical. And a lot of it is mental health questions, a lot of other social issues, some teaching. Then they finish the checkup and they go, so Dr. Hackett, we'll see you next year. I'm like, no, drive over to my office and come up in the car and tell me the color car you're in and we're going to give you your 2 shots.
Nice. I have to ask something why I have an American doctor. And I'm doing this because we have a lot of Australian listeners on the podcast. We've watched this in movies and I hope some Americans in the room can tell me, what is it with the grabbing of the testicles, turning your head and coughing? What is the doctor looking for? I have never in my life, I've seen it in so many movies, I've never in my life had a doctor grab my testicles and go turn and cough.
I've had to do it.
You don't have good doctors.
Yeah, but that's because I asked you nicely to do it. That wasn't a medical thing, Jack.
Wait, you're not a doctor?
It's just when the doctor thinks you're sexy. So.
No, but what is it? We've never had that. They don't do it in Britain either. I've spoken to British people. We don't know this. They grab your balls and tell you to turn and cough. What is that all about? It's like you're all being felt up against you.
They're looking for a hernia.
Okay, so why don't we do that in Australia and Australia?
Again, because you go to the vet.
Yes. You cracked the code early on.
And also, we don't use the term strep throat. We just say throat infection. I used to watch some people in movies like, I couldn't go out with him anymore because he had strep. And you're like, it sounds so scary. It's just a throat infection. It goes in like 3 days.
I don't know. Throat infection sounds worse to me than strep throat.
Yeah.
No, you just got an infection in your throat. Once you take a few antibiotics and then it's gone.
Well, Dr. Hackett,
I'm just saying that I feel like there's more medical procedures in America than necessarily grabbing people's testicles and making them
or maybe
cough.
not enough in Australia.
If you get like a wart in your finger or something like that, you come over here to America, they like freeze it, this and that, and then they send you off to a wart specialist, and they tell you to do this. They tell you that everything in America is referring you to another person. I could be a doctor in America, a normal GP, not what you do, Dr. Hackett, but I could be just a normal GP. Just you got a problem with your foot, go to the foot guy. You got a problem with your skin, go to the skin fella. You know, I could do that all day. They're just referral officers. But in Australia, I'll tell you what. The doctors dig in. You go in, you go, I got this mole. They don't send you off to a bloody skin doctor. The guy in the building just goes, get me scalpel and a solder, right? And he just digs in there in your back, and then he burns it all out while you're there. It's just a better system. Yeah. It's more
Sounds
hands
like
on.
Your healthcare sucks.
More hands on the ground.
Yeah. Hold on a second. I'm going to defend ourselves a little bit. I'm primary care. My husband's primary care. We do all that. I don't deliver babies, but we'll take off moles, we'll treat warts, we'll do all that. It just depends on.
I must be a nightmare to live with because they always send me to a different doctor. Every doctor can't help me and sends me to another doctor. I just run around town. I went to one for me hands the other day, and they said, we need some x-rays and stuff. So they're sending me back to my doctor who referred me to the bloody hand doctor.
What was that doctor that was TV? Doctor whatever, medicine in Australia?
What?
Quibby or not Quibby or...
What, you're thinking Dr. Quinn medicine woman?
Yeah, Dr. Quinn.
That's got nothing to do with Australia. that was Jane Seymour being a doctor in the Wild West. Yeah. And you've just gone, must have been modern day Australia.
Well, it does sound like the way you make Australian healthcare sound, it's kind of like the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
So.
No, you were thinking of
Dr. Quinn medicine woman.
Dr. Quinn medicine woman.
I was thinking of Doogie House.
You're thinking of Quincy Goes Outback or whatever with Tom Selleck. You've got the two. I've never seen that movie. No, Quincy Down Under.
Quincy Down Under. I thought that's who.
Yeah. That was hot on. Like they did like Crocodile Dundee, and then they brought Tom Selleck out, and they go Quincy Down Under, and it was just Tom Selleck just hanging out in Australia when he was a cowboy. I haven't seen it.
It's got 56% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Quincy Down Under.
Quigley Down Under. Sorry.
Yeah, Quigley.
Okay.
Quincy was the medical doctor who helped fix you on the show.
Oh yeah, he was a forensic pathologist or something, and then he just somehow solved crimes.
How many of you people, the doctors, right? How many of you actually do start solving crimes? Because diagnosis, murder, Quigley. There's always seems to be in those TV shows. Doctors seem to be obsessed with solving crimes. Have you or do you plan to solve a crime in the future?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right.
Easy answer.
Okay, Dr. Faith Hackett, thank you very much for being with us today. We appreciate it, especially in this time where this is a very interesting topic to discuss. Is there anything you want to say?
I got another one for you. I got to ask you.
Trying to let you go.
What's mono? What's mono? Everything.
Mononucleosis.
Yeah.
What is mono?
I heard that.
I hear this all the time. Is that the kissing one?
It's the nickname.
Is that glandular fever?
It's yes, that's what they used to call glandular fever. It's infectious mononucleosis caused by Epstein-Barr virus.
Oh, so I had glandular fever. They just call it glandular fever because glandular fever makes you tired. Because I remember what I did was with my mum. I woke up one morning. I know the show's over.
No, it's fine. I didn't know. Glandular fever is mononucleosis. It's the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had glandular fever. I didn't call it mono. I always used to be like, I hear she has mono. Right? And I was like, what's that?
You hung out with a lot of surfers.
Yeah.
That's what we see in movies. It's all like, 90210 people, right? So anyway, I woke up a bit tired one morning and I went, I don't want to go to school. So I went to my mum and said, I'm a bit sick. She leaves the house to go to work, and then I'm sitting there masturbating and watching Indiana Jones, right? Good day. Good as they get. Then the next day, I thought to myself, I still don't want to go to school. A bit tired. And so I went, I won't go to school. And then I thought, could I go 3? Could I lie my way to 3 days off school? And so I said, I won't go to school. So my mum cancelled work and said, we have to go down to the doctors. So then I'm in the doctors and I'm already lying, right? Because there's nothing wrong with me except I was a bit tired. I'm like, what's your symptoms? A bit tired. Well, have you got pain here? Oh yeah, that's very painful. You know, when they're touching you.
Yeah.
Does this feel heavy? Oh, that feels very heavy. You know, and then I thought they were going to go, you'll be right in a couple of days. Have another 2 days off school. I thought I'd bought myself the week.
Right.
And then what happens is the doctor went, yeah, this isn't good. We need blood work. And he comes in with a needle. And I'm like, fuck, I've bloody pushed this too far now. I've got a needle in my arm, right?
And he's like, we need to neuter him.
Yeah.
Wrong animal.
So I get the needle. And then they take it out. And then the next day they found out I had mono. That's why I was tired. I wasn't lying. I just was feeling tired. And I thought, I won't go to school. So I had it for a while.
Mono was rough.
And this is the thing. It was the kissing disease. And I'd only kissed 2 girls in my whole life.
You can get it on your first kiss.
And that girl wasn't worth it. I'll tell you.
All right. Well, I've tried to let you go 3 times now, Dr. Hackett. Is there anything you'd like to say? Yeah.
I do want to say something. And this was a lot of fun, and I thank you for letting me do this. I will say that in my lifetime, and I've only been a doctor for, like I said, 34 years, I have seen, with the advent of Hib vaccine, pneumococcal vaccine, those are the 2 big ones that we used to see diseases in all the time. Like in the late 80s, when I was first starting practice, I used to lose patients to meningitis, pneumonia. There was a really odd disease that Hib caused that made your epiglottis swell up. And we used to carry a beeper in the when I was training at Hopkins that went off if they thought they had an epiglottis patient, because the epiglottis is like a thumb in the back of your throat, and it got so swollen that it would just flop back and kill the kid. So we had to learn how to put a needle here to let the kid live.
Jeez.
And it was terrifying being a pediatrician in like the 70s and 80s. And they came out with those 2 vaccines sort of in the late 80s and made them better and better. And now we give them at 2, 4, 6, and 12 months, 2, 4, 6, and 15 months. And it's gone. It's 99% gone, Hib vaccine. So when you were asking about whether we got rid of, a couple of bugs, I forgot to mention Hib vaccine, because in my short lifetime, it's gone. Now, it does exist in people's throats all the time, but it doesn't kill our little kids. And I remember distinctly every winter getting a big breath, and forget the flu. It was getting that call at 3 a.m. to go down to the ER for like a 9-month-old with a fever and a bulging head. And I'd put the spinal needle in, and pus came out of the spinal needle, like green pus. And I was shoving antibiotics and spent the whole night in the ER trying to save that little one's life. Sometimes I didn't. And sometimes I did, but they lost their vision, or they lost their hearing, or they became cognitively delayed. It was a horrible, horrible disease. And when Hib first came out, it was only given out to 2-year-olds, and they made the vaccine better and better, and they could give it down to babies because it was a baby disease. And my partner's 8 years younger than me, and she's never seen it. It went away that fast. Once they instituted that vaccine, put it in the schedule, made doctors go, you know what? Made it mandatory. I would tell her about the red beeper, about, getting pus out of spinal columns, about the pneumonia kids that got intubated and died. She said, Faith, I never saw that. I'm like, what? And I found that really fascinating. So when we talk about vaccine success stories, I'd say Hib is way up there with the pneumococcal virus, which everybody knows is like Pneumovax or Prevnar, but it's pretty much dropped that 90-95% in the children's. So when the CDC gives me statistics, I see it. I no longer get that call at 3 a.m. with the febrile, the kid with the fever, and put my shoes on and run out the door to the ER. I don't have to. I'm like, did you get your shots? Yes. Fine. Then you're good. Use some Tylenol. I'll see you in the morning.
So take your vaccines, people.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Hackett. You've been a joy. You're a good egg, you. You're all right, you. You're out there helping kids and stuff like that. You're all right. You've redeemed the Hackett name.
I've been ruining it for 3 years out here.
I'm only sorry I'm not seeing you, Jack.
I'll turn the camera eventually.
You didn't even know you had H1N1. You don't care about him.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure, guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Dr. Hackett.
Thank you, Dr. Hackett. All right, everyone, that's our show. Thank you for listening. I'll do my old catchphrase today. Do my old one, TV one. What is it? What was it again?
We can all do better.
We can all do better. Good night, Australia.
It doesn't work if I have to tell you.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe, rate, review us.
Oh, yeah.
We're also on Instagram at IDCAT Podcast, IDKAT Podcast.
Keep the comments coming. Not enough bad ones about me. I feel like I'm not doing a good job.
And also, keep telling your friends, because what we want to do with this podcast is we want to get it to a size where we can start, when I go back on the road, maybe we can do afternoon shows in your town and do the podcast to live audiences, So that's something. I think we're at the numbers already in Australia where we could do that, but it would be a nice little thing if we could take this on the road. And, if we come and visit your city, maybe we'll have an expert from your city about your city or what have you.
Yeah.
About the city.
Yeah.
Tell us everything you know about Des Moines, Jim.
Well, it's like I could do a whole thing on Sydney about when it was.
Yeah, but
founded.
we could find an expert and
we'll do whatever topic.
yeah,
we do want a tour.
You know what's going to happen in Australia? The boomerang. Oh God.
Yeah. So share clips with your friends. Tell your friends. Join the Facebook group, the Jim Jefferies.
The didgeridoo.
Group. And
how did you invent it? I cut down a tree. It was hollow.
Good night,
Good night,
Australia.
Australia.